So, good evening, everybody. I don't know how many of you participate in my course. I only see, or I am being told, only 11 students have turned up. So I have to start, even if so few students are listening. So my job today is to summarize the second and the third lecture, which I have delivered to the university and which is in front of me. Now, I will read the lecture and you will have a chance to stop me wherever you want to have some more understanding. And I will, because time is very limited, I will have to summarize in this lecture 2 lectures, 2 and 3. And next week, next Sunday, we will continue lecture 4. And by Friday, latest, you should be able to get the materials from the university for lecture 4. Now remember, this series of lectures is connected with Yogacara approach to meditation and Yogacara understanding of the meditation. So the first lecture was introductory and the second lecture is entitled The Unique Feature of the Yogacara Approach to the Study of Soteriology. Soteriology means, in brackets, theory of liberation. Now, no matter what Buddhism you study, this is my special emphasis. No matter what Buddhism you study, Theravada or any branches of the great vehicle or of the Bodhisattva path, unfortunately in the Shravaka path, disciple path, we have only one living tradition, and that is Theravada. And the study of Theravada is especially precious because it is a living tradition. So from the point of view of soteriology, it is of incredible merit because it can lead you step by step to the liberation. Now, the in the Bodhisattva path, this Yogacara tradition is, so to say, almost non-existing as a living tradition. Only in Japan, in Nara, there is one temple where still Yogacara is taught as a living tradition, starting with Xianzang up to the Japanese masters who transmitted the tradition to Japan, and up till today it is taught in a traditional way. So traditional way is 12 years of course of Yogacara. The first 6 years you have to study Abhidharma, especially the Sarvastivada Abhidharma, based on the study of the Abhidharma Kosha, but also of the other treatise leading with the Sarvastivada and Sautrantika method of understanding the Buddhist doctrine. Now, this tradition, as you may know, we have the literature, but it is not a living tradition anymore. Only Theravada tradition is still a living tradition, and you will find not only the scriptures, but also the commentaries to the scriptures written in Pali and also in the languages like Sinhalese, Thai, Burmese. So up till today, you will find a very wide, especially in Burma, where this meditation tradition has been best preserved, you will find commentaries to the soteriology, especially to Visuddhimagga, the path of liberation. So up till now, some teachers, including my teacher, the Pauksayano, they are writing the Grantapada, the commentaries to the system of meditation in Theravada. Now, no matter what tradition you study in the path of the Bodhisattvas, you will find that the practice of shamatha and vipassana. What is happening? Some noises there, I don't know. So it is all in a way based on the understanding of shamatha and vipassana, which is a Buddhist yoga, essence of the Buddhist yoga, is based on Yogacara. So you will find the teachers like nowadays in Tibetan tradition, the most prominent school, the Gelug studies, the Lamrim, the Tsongkhapa explains also the meditation process is mostly based on the Yogacara. Even so, the philosophy is Madhyamika. Same in Chinese, the Tiantai, Zhi Yi Tasha, is based on the Kumara Jivas, especially Tajit Talun. But he, in explaining meditation, he's still using the Yogacara principle. And what is the Yogacara principle of soteriology? The Yogacara principle of soteriology is that everything is based on mind. And this fact, as you will find in lecture 2 in the beginning, this is not an epistemological approach. This is not an ontological approach, not studying mind in terms of its existence and non-existence. It is purely epistemological approach and soteriological approach, which is most important. And in Yogacara, the epistemological approach, the theory of knowledge, cannot be separated from the soteriological approach, the theory of liberation. Ultimately, all Buddhism is based on the liberation. We are Buddhists, so we study liberation. That is the subject matter of Buddhism. Now we need Buddhism because we have no liberation. When we have liberation, then we can do not need to rely on the scriptures. We rely on our experience. And the soteriological approach is based on experience, not on not on ontology. So this is a great mistake. Some people try to understand, especially in India, where the ontological approach is very common, try to understand the Yogacara from the ontological point of view, but it is a mistake. Yogacara is purely based on the practice of liberation and on epistemology based on liberation. So we should keep this in mind. So I have compared this with the phenomenology of Husserl in Europe, which Husserl had a great contribution to European philosophy by emphasizing that actually we have to come to a pure phenomenology in order to understand the objective side of the mind. Normally, we only use the subjective side of the mind. And the subjective side of the mind is based on our feelings. According to Buddhism, it is very important. Due to our feelings, we are bound, and due to our feelings, we are liberated. Because the feelings, or Vedana actually is from the Sanskrit root vid, which means to know. We know through the feeling. We know objects through the feeling. When there is no feeling, there is no reception of the object. And when there is feeling, there is already a tendency to distinguish according to whatever is pleasant to us whatever is unpleasant to us, and whatever is neither pleasant nor unpleasant to us. This tendency is whenever the mind is connected with an object. Whether we like it or not, it is there. Now, just like Husserl tried later, even so Husserl was probably not aware of Yogacara, he's trying to make the same approach to philosophy, not based on ontology at all, but purely based on pure perception. The pure perception is Yogacara. The pure perception, not colored by our likings, dislikings. And this pure perception is especially important for understanding the whole Buddhist philosophy. So what Yogacara does, it wants to investigate your experience in terms of pure perception. And where can you find the pure perception? Of course, in the mind. So the method of Yogacara is to deny the existence of anything outside the mind. But this is soteriological approach. This is not ontological approach. This, no matter what Buddhism you study, this is in a way the essence of the whole Buddhist teachings. You will find the same I have emphasized in the Theravada scriptures, in Sarvastivada scriptures, in all Buddhist scriptures. I have quoted the Dhammapada, which says, Mano kubangama dhamma, mano seta, mano maya, manasa ya padutena, yo bhasati va karoti va tasa dukham anveti, and so on. So it means all phenomena are contained in the mind, are based in the mind. Then you have in many passages like Chitena niyate loko, chitena parikasati, chitasa eka dhammasa, sabbe dhamma vasam anvagu. All the phenomena are in the power of one single phenomena, which is mind. And mind controls everything in our experience. So now everything is controlled in our experience, unfortunately, because we are not liberated, not by an objective mind, but by a subjective mind. So we all have different likings, different disliking, and we are all different categories of beings according to our karma. According to Buddhism, the difference of the world is based on the difference of karma. The Abhidharma Kosha says, karmaja lokavaichitrayam. The variety of the world is based on the karma, is born from the karma. And the karma is, of course, born from the mind. What mind? The subjective mind. So now, if we want to understand Yogacara, we don't want to think about the mind in terms of its existence or non-existence. This is very important for understanding the Chinese Buddhism also, which is dominated by Chan tradition. The Chan tradition is very well known for many koans, kung-ans, which make fun of the ontological approach. The mind exists or not exist. All this is a meaningless question. But the mind is there. We cannot, it is one thing we cannot deny. Now, as you may know, I have already mentioned it in the first scriptures, the Yogacarins believe that they are the ultimate explanation of the middle way. Ultimate explanation of the dependent origination. Because the dependent origination is, understanding of the dependent origination is what makes the middle way possible. Now, the different Buddhist traditions are based on a different interpretation of the dependent origination. You studying Buddhism, you should always keep this in mind. Now, the dependent origination in Yogacara, I mean here the Yogacara based on the scriptures of Maitreya and its interpretation by the Asanga and his brother Vasubandhu. So in these scriptures, the dependent origination is based in alaya, as you may know. So if we want to understand the phenomenology, we have to understand alaya. And I have explained, according to the Yogacarins, if alaya makes sense, everything in Buddhism will make sense. If alaya does not make sense, everything in Buddhism will not make sense. So this is explained in detail in Chengwei Shalun, also in Shuji. So what means Chittamatrata? What means the Weisha? What means Weishin? Chittamatrata means actually Weishin. Weishin, Shin means alaya. But alaya is also sure because it the job of the mind is to differentiate. Liao Pie. Because we have a mind, we can differentiate. If we don't have a mind, we have nothing to differentiate. And we are living beings, living organism, because we differentiate. And because we differentiate, we can attain liberation. The liberation is based on correct differentiation. And correct differentiation means understanding the mind. Understanding, as far as Yogacara is concerned, that all our experience is based in mind. So I have pointed out that all Buddhist traditions agree that you can only liberate from suffering when you understand the whole of your experience. Otherwise, you cannot liberate from suffering. This is, you will find in the Theravada scriptures, you will find in the Sarvastivada scriptures, you will find in the path of Bodhisattva, also in the scriptures explaining the Bodhisattva path. So we are bound because we don't understand the whole. And we don't understand the whole as a dharma. So because we separate ourselves from the dharma, so we believe in the real existence of the objects of our knowledge, and also in the real existence of the mind which distinguishes these objects of our knowledge. But this mind which distinguishes the objects of our knowledge is not an objective mind, it is purely subjective mind. When you investigate it, you will see how much it is bound to our likings and dislikings and to our our present likings and dislikings are the result of our previous likings and dislikings. What we are attached to is not the present object, but it is a memory of the likings and dislikings to the past objects. Very important to keep this in mind. Now, from the Yogacara point of view, as I have pointed out, the Yogacara is the ultimate middle way. This ultimate middle way means nitartha. Nitartha means liao-i, as opposed to pu-liao-i. So according to Yogacara, the Buddha has taught 3 wheels of the Dharma. In Buddhism, when you study especially Chinese Buddhism, Huayan, Tiantai, all have the different interpretations of the wheels of the Dharma. Now we don't go into that. But the Yogacara interpretation is the wheel of the Dharma taught in the, especially in the Sandhi Nirmochana Sutra and in the 5 treatises of the Maitreya. It is the ultimate middle path. So why it is the ultimate middle path? In the first wheel of the Dharma in Benares, everybody knows Buddha has taught the middle way based on the 4 Noble Truths. And to understand the 4 Noble Truths, you have to investigate the impermanence of the 5 aggregates, of the 12 bases, of the 18 elements, the dependent origination, which means the cause and effect appear and disappear at the same moment. This is a real understanding of dependent origination. Because we don't see it, therefore we hold to something which exists, which is not there. And that something which exists and is not there, it is a self. For the Shravaka path especially emphasizes the self of the persons. The Bodhisattva path emphasizes the self of the phenomena. Now, when you understand, according to Yogacara, this is different from Madhyamika. When you understand Yogacara, according to Yogacara, when you understand the self of the persons, it does not mean that this understanding of the self, the selflessness of the persons, if you understand, it does not mean that you have penetrated the selflessness of the phenomena. Nagarjuna, not same. Please make sure you understand it very clearly. You will not find this principle in Madhyamika, but it is very important for Yogacara. When you know the selflessness of the persons, it does not mean that you have penetrated deeply into the selflessness of the phenomena. In order to what is the justification of Yogacara? You can only penetrate completely the selflessness of the phenomena when you understand the mind. As long as you don't understand everything being contained in the mind, you will not penetrate fully the selflessness of the phenomena. You may penetrate fully the selflessness of the persons, but as long as you don't go to Vaishya, you don't go to Yogacara, your selflessness of the phenomena will not be complete. So when you penetrate completely the selflessness of the phenomena, you have also completely penetrated the selflessness of the person. But when you have penetrated the selflessness of the person, it does not mean you have penetrated the selflessness of phenomena. So what is the job of the Yogacara? To penetrate the selflessness of the phenomena through bringing all the phenomena to the mind. This is not ontological, this is a soteriological approach. This is the epistemological approach. It does not mean that this subjective mind has more right to existence than the objects that it experiences. It simply means that when there is a subjective mind, there are the tendency to cling to the phenomena. And the subjective mind is based in the alaya itself. Because the alaya appropriates all the content of our experience. And what is all the content of our experience? I think I have already explained in the first lecture. It is the seeds in our mind, it is our faculties, and it is the bhajana loka, the chisha, the world which our faculties experience. But our faculties experience the world on the base of alaya. And in the alaya, already the subjective aspect of our experience is coded in the bijas, in the sichi, in the vasanas. So only by pure phenomenology, similar approach like Husserl, those who have studied European philosophy, you may know, like Husserl criticized Heidegger because he took the phenomenology into question of existence. And this cannot be compatible with the meaning of pure observation. So, according to Yogacara, Buddha has taught first the existence of the aggregates and so on, their impermanence, the suffering of impermanence, and their selfless nature of that which is impermanent. And he established the existence of the phenomena which break the existence of the self in person. That should be very clear. Now, if you believe in Buddhism and if you believe in dependent origination, the same in Theravada, you will find the same principle. You cannot believe in a true existence. Because true existence is against the spirit of dependent origination. What we experience in the next moment is not the same, but also not different from what we experience in the previous moment. This is a secret of dependent origination. Because we believe in the self, in persons and in phenomena, we see it as the same. But it is neither same nor different. Neither same nor different means neither existence nor non-existence. So Buddhism is the perfect philosophy of bringing you beyond clinging. As you know, according to Buddhism, we believe in self because we have clinging. If we don't have clinging, we don't believe in self. But we need a self. As you know, Indian philosophy is all based on the idea of Buddha's contribution is we believe in the self because we have tendency to clinging. If this tendency is not there, you don't need any self. Now in Indian philosophy, as you know, the Upanishads and so on, self is also explained as beyond this or that. But you don't even need to be puzzled by that if you understand Buddhism. You don't even need to bring the self into your experience, to the real nature of the experience. And Yogacara is the philosophy based on the real nature of experience. This is purely phenomenological. This is the highest reality. So this means in order to get a deeper knowledge of dependent origination, neither affirming existence nor denying existence, then Nagarjuna has taught the emptiness. Emptiness is the only ultimate reality, Nagarjuna. But if you accept emptiness as only ultimate reality, you have a difficulty. What difficulty? You will have very hard time to distinguish yourself from the nihilism. This is a problem of Madhyamika. Even so, Nagarjuna tried very hard, his disciples tried very hard to explain that the emptiness is only skillful means also, same like Yogacara, mind only is only skillful means. If you believe in emptiness, then it means you are as far away from the truth as one can be. The emptiness is only skillful means to lead you to the real reality. But this can be misunderstood. And Madhyamikas have a difficult time to explain that they are not nihilists. So comes the Yogacara, which ultimately explain that everything becomes clear when the mind is clear. And the mind itself, in the phenomenological sense, is beyond existence and non-existence. What makes it believe in existence and non-existence is our upachara, the first verse of Vaishalun. Atma-dharma upacharo vividhaya pravartate. Vijnana parinamo asau parinama sachatrida. This is the beginning of the teaching Vaishalun. So what does it mean? Because we have the old habit of clinging to the existence of self in persons and in things, so our mind, which is originally a pure phenomena, has been transformed into a dualistic reality in which we live. The mind is not a dualistic entity. It cannot be a dualistic entity because you can contain all the phenomena in it, and all the phenomena can be only contained in a non-dualistic entity. This should be very clear. So this division into the dualistic perception happens in the mind itself. And this dualistic perception is our subjective perception. So what is citta matrata? To deny everything except the mind. To bring you into the non-dualistic nature of your experience. This dualistic nature of experience happens in the mind itself. So this is the soteriological approach of Yogacara. This is what brings, when you understand the mind itself, you will understand the non-dual nature of your experience. So like this, you will avoid the extreme of Samaropa and Apavada, of the Zheng-yi and Sung-hai. Zheng-yi means you impose something on the reality which is not there. And Apavada means when you take from reality something which is really there. That something which is really there is a mind. Nobody can be...
The deadly coronavirus continues. But China is not only battling the virus.
Somebody speaking. I can't hear. Sorry. Huh? But maybe better wait till we have finished, then we will have discussion. So let me quickly read this second lecture so that we can have some discussion. So what is the job of the Yogacara is to transform our dualistic, differentiating, and here differentiating, discriminating consciousness into the Nirvikalpa Jnana, Wu Fen Pie. I have translated as non-dual wisdom. So all that we experience as duality in Yogacara is called Abhuta Parikalpa. Abhuta Parikalpa means the dualistic understanding of the world. Abhuta means not real. Parikalpa means imagination. So we imagine the object of the mind to be something outside the mind, because we have clinging to the self and clinging to the object. When this clinging is not there, when this upachara, deep habit to this clinging is not there, then we are in the pure phenomenology. And the soteriology of Buddhism is, in a way, this pure phenomenology, to bring you back to the non-subjective mind. The mind purely reflecting the object as they really are. So it does not get emotionally bound by the objects. Being emotionally bound by the objects is being bound by our karma. Very important to understand. When we see it very clearly, we are meditating. Thus, in the Yogacara concept, the teaching about the objects of wisdom, such as aggregates, elements, and spheres, and so on, are only medicine for curing non-enlightened beings from holding to a real self. So the teaching of emptiness of all the phenomena are taught only as medicine of mind only, to cure beings from the idea of a real existence of all differentiated phenomena, while the teaching of mind only is to realize the reality of mind beyond existence and non-existence. That is also the realization of the true meaning according to Yogacara. All Yogacara Madhyamika, they all both based on the Transcendental Wisdom Sutras. Without Transcendental Wisdom Sutras, Poje Polomi, Kin, no Mahayana. The Mahayana is all based on the Transcendental Wisdom. So no matter what Buddhism you study in the Bodhisattva path, Buddhism is based on Transcendental Wisdom. No matter whether Shravaka path or the Pratyeka Buddha path or the Bodhisattva path, they are based on Transcendental Wisdom. But this Transcendental Wisdom, according to Yogacara, can only be completed when we understand Chittamatrata, when we understand Vaishya. Why? Because first we have to deny the existence of our subjective in order to understand really what is empty and what is real. Now, as long as we have not denied the whole of what we experience as duality, we will not understand what is false and what is real. Is it clear? So this is Yogacara. So it is done in order to abandon completely the grasping for existence and non-existence of all phenomena, to realize a state of perfect suchness inside and outside by getting rid of all influences. I have translated vasanas as influences of the previous unwholesome habits, bija stored in consciousness. In other words, all facts and all principles in a correct Buddhist practice have to be traced to the mind itself. The uniqueness of the Yogacara is its understanding of all practices of the three vehicles leading to Buddhahood from the point of view of mind only. This is what we're going to discuss in this course. So only if you understand the mind only, you will be clear about the Shravaka path, its difference from the Pratyeka Buddha path, and its difference from the Bodhisattva path. So this tradition, Mr. Liang had this question, in Yogacara as taught in Yiche Sutilun and so on, it's the existence of three vehicles is not denied. On the contrary, it is affirmed. It is part of the Yogacara. And to understand all three vehicles, you have to understand the mind only. Because ultimately all Buddha's teachings is based on the mind. This you will find in all Buddhist traditions. So we are bound because we don't understand the mind. We are liberated because we understand the mind. And we understand the mind when we go beyond the subjective perception. And according to Yogacara, it is impossible as long as you hold to either existence of the phenomena of our experience or to their emptiness. It can be only possible if you understand the mind. The mind cannot be denied. But it does not mean that the mind truly exists as something as opposed to non-existence. This is a fault. So Buddhist yoga is based on the understanding of the gochara, which means the objects of the mind. And the objects of the mind in Yogacara is the mind itself, nothing else. Then the correct conduct is based on the understanding of the mind. All Buddhist teachings are based on the mind. And the result, the three kinds of Buddhahood, the Buddhahood of disciples, the Buddhahood of Pratyeka Buddhas, and the Buddhahood of the Bodhisattvas, is based on the understanding of the mind. Different approach to understanding of the mind. This is what we're going to study, starting with the understanding of the mind within the tradition of the disciples, who will attain the arahathood, but not according to the teachings of the bodhisattvas, not the dharmakaya, not the body of the dharma, because they still have asanas. So they are not completely free from the pure perception. Their perception is still colored by their habits. Only the Buddha's perception is not colored by the habits. So the Vasubandhu emphasizes only the Buddha actually knows the Chitta Matrata, the Vaishya, completely. We can only know partly. Even the Bodhisattva knows only partly. Even the Pratyeka Buddha knows partly. Even the disciple Buddha knows partly. Only the fully enlightened Buddha knows completely. So this is the meaning of the Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, Vushang Bodhi, to know the mind completely, to know the Chitta Matrata, only mind completely. So here the approach of the phenomenological approach and the approach of essence of mind. I have written somewhere else, you have two approaches to Yogacara, from the phenomenological approach, Fa Xiang, Xianzang, and from the essence of mind approach. So actually, in Buddhism, you have three interpretations of the dependent origination. The interpretation of the disciples, based on karma. The interpretation of the school of Asanga, Wujo, Bosa, Vasubandhu, based on the alaya. And the interpretation of like Tasshin Shinun, the most important in Chinese Buddhism, based on the essence of the mind, on the Tathagata. Like, so three interpretations of the dependent origination in Buddhism. Madhyamika does not bring any new interpretation. When you study Nagarjuna, you will find that he only repeats the classical interpretation based on karma. He does not add anything to it. So, according to Master Yin-Shun, now I am referring to this, there are two theories of mind only. There is different theory by Yin-Shun, different theory by who is speaking. There is some disturbance, something that some noises coming out. I don't know what noises. Something. What do I have to do with that? Okay. So you will find, I am not referring to that now. You can study later. There is Taishi interpretation of the two traditions of Yogacara and the Yin-Shun interpretation. They are almost the same, but yet they are different. Otherwise, Yin-Shun would not say that there are two different traditions, different from Taishi. But from outside, it looks like the same. There is not much difference. So I don't analyze now. So theory of mind only based on the analysis of experience of the phenomena. Phenomena here means vastu. Vastu actually in Sanskrit means base. What we usually see is something without base. that is a self in the person and self in the thing. But a Vastu is a real base, not based on the idea of the real person and the real thing, but based on the real objects of our experience. That is Vastu. Based on the illusionary six mental consciousness. So our experience of the world as abhuta parikalpa, as duality, is based on the illusionary six consciousness. Why illusionary six consciousness? Because it is based on manas. And the object of manas is alaya. And in alaya, the itself, our reality divides into three realities according to Yogacara. The witnessing reality, the reality observing the object, and the reality of the object observed. So we have, so to say, three kinds of consciousness. The karmic consciousness, which is swasamviti or zisheng fen. In Chinese it's called zisheng fen. Self-witnessing. Big discussion between Madhyamika and Yogacara if it really exists or not exists, but we don't go into that now. Now, this Zicheng Fen, which is the essence of alaya, which is the essence of mind, and through understanding this Zicheng Fen, we go into the real process of liberation. Understanding the essence of the mind. And this essence of the mind, due to our habits of the seeing reality, real reality in persons and things, becomes then two realities. The Tianfen, the reality of the observer, and the Xiangfen, the reality, Nimitta Bhaga, the reality of that which is observed. When there is observer, automatically appears that which is observed. And because of our previous holding, we understand that which is observed as something separate from the observer. So we are caught in the mind itself. And we can only be liberated when we understand the mind itself. So we are caught in the mind like spider is caught in his own web, or like the silk worm is caught in his cocoon. We cannot go out. And because we cannot go out, we are suffering. And because we suffer, we need Yogacara to make it very clear that this suffering comes nowhere else but from the mind itself. And from what mind? From mind which clings to our differentiations, which is subjective mind. So all our experience is subjective. That's why we argue between ourselves. But we believe and are firmly convinced that it is objective because we have not studied phenomenology. We have not studied the Yogacara. When we understand the objective nature of the mind, we can discard our subjective approach to reality. It does not mean that it will not be there. It will still be there, but it will not be real. That's why it's called Abhuta Parikalpa. When you see it as our imagination, you will not cling to it because we don't see it as our imagination. We are so much clinging to it. So we create problem for ourselves and for others as well. So this is the advantage of Yogacara. This consciousness is illusionary but has an own nature. This sixth consciousness, discriminating consciousness, differentiating consciousness, is illusionary because it's based on the manas, which brings the idea of the self in alaya. Be it the Tianfen, as Dhammapala emphasizes, or be it the Bijas, as Anhui emphasizes, or be it the Xinhuang, as Nando emphasizes. Whatever it is alaya, and the alaya is already contains our bijas, our vasanas, which transform our consciousness. Is it clear? So this own nature of the mind must be there, because if it is not there, nothing can hold, because everything holds in the mind only. This is the logic of the Yogacara. So we can only, in all our experience, when we trace its root, we have to go to the mind only. When that which has no own self-nature are only names. So the peculiarity of this tradition is not two realities. Actually, it boils down to two realities, but three realities. Due to names, we impose the idea of self-existent nature to things and to persons. Due to names. According to Yogacara, when you hold to something, you already have given a name to it. Because whenever there is consciousness, there is perception. And the perception is explained as giving name or form to that which has no definite form. How you give a definite form to something which has no definite form? By giving it a name. So that's why we interpret the reality, which is dependent origination, all Buddhists agree, through the filter of the names we impose on our experience of the world and of ourselves, of dependent origination in Buddhism. So the first step in meditation is, no matter whether you are meditating the Shravaka path, Bodhisattva path, is, according to Yogacara, to see very clearly how this parikalpita reality, pianchi reality, brings the idea of self-existence into our experience, which is not there from the very beginning. It is based on our previous habits, but it has never been there. And this reality of the names has no characteristics whatsoever, because the names have no characteristic. This is very important to understand. So this is the first step in meditation. We will study it. No matter whether you practice Shravaka path or Bodhisattva path, first you have to be very clear about that. That the names bring the idea of the real reality and therefore attachment to our experience. What you do not name, what you do not connect with your previous experience, because the practice of perception is connecting with your previous experience. Perception has to do with memory. And when we connect with memory, we interpret the content of our experience through the memory. And this is subjective. So there cannot be mind without perception. Because we perceive something, we receive something. Because we receive something, we already receive due to our memory, as either we like it or dislike it, we want it or we don't want it. It's already coded there. We can't escape from this vicious circle. As long as we are not Buddhas, it will always be there to some extent. Very difficult to avoid. When you see it, you are meditating according to Yogacara. When you don't see it, you are somehow missing the main point of meditation, which means understanding the mind. So yena damna yo damno abhilabhyate nasa vidyate. So that means by that name by which that phenomena is named, it does not exist. This is Yogacara. It exists, of course, in dependent origination, but not based on our names. It is all but fabricated all around, parikalpita. This theory, just like the Theravada and Sarvastivada Abhidharma, emphasizes a thorough understanding of the real, selfless object of experience to attain the ultimate realization, which for the Yogacharins is the self-nature of the mind. Only one phenomena has a self-nature, and that is the mind. And where do you find the self-nature of the mind? In the self-witnessing aspect of the mind. Thus, the ultimate pure object in the five aggregates, which is beyond language, is realized. This is the ultimate reality. According to Tieshan Mijing, on which the Yogacara is based, the ultimate reality is the pure objects. Now we are in the Pureland center. When you have realized the Pureland, you will have realized the ultimate reality. Because the ultimate reality means the pure objects in the five aggregates. This is what the saint sees. No matter whether he is a Buddha disciple or if he is a Buddha, a Bodhisattva, he sees in this way. Why? Because he has transformed his manas into the wisdom of equality. But this transformation is not yet perfect, because his transformation of the alaya into the mirror reflecting wisdom has not yet been fully realized. So the Buddha does not need any attention to the object because he's just reflecting the object. The Arahat still needs attention. If he does not have the attention based in reality, it will lead to defilements. So his all attention has to be based in reality, and this reality for him are the selfless phenomena. And then we have the theory of mind based on the real permanent nature of the mind, the principle of the matrix of the Tathagata. The Chinese Buddhism whether we like it or not, especially emphasizes this aspect. In a way, because it is Chinese Buddhism, whether we like it or not, is all connected with Taoism. And Taoism is also kind of a Zhulai Zhang philosophy. Taoism is Zhulai Zhang. So Chinese Buddhism became, whether we like it or not, very deeply marked by this Zhulai Zhang philosophy, which is contained in the Taoism itself. The theory of the illusionary consciousness is based on epistemology. According to Yogacara, when the objects are directly experienced through the five senses, they are not grasped as outside. Only later, the mental six consciousness grasps them to be so. Very important to understand. So now, when you only see and do not differentiate, then you don't distinguish between inside and outside. It's only when you seize the sign of the object that it appears as something outside, something separated from the mind. So the five senses, just like alaya, can see the object directly. The six consciousness sees the object through the filter. So it loses the unity of that which is the one who perceives and that which is perceived. Very important to understand. But as long as you don't grasp the sign of the object in the mind, I can still see you, but I will see you as a different from my mind. When I grasp you are such and such shape, you have such and such name, right? Then I see you as something different, something outside. But then I stop to be objective. Why? Because I will impose again my liking and disliking. Previous experience, I like this shape, I don't like that shape. I am attracted to this kind of color, I am not attracted to that kind of color. I like that shape, I deem that shape to be beautiful, to be desirable, that shape not desirable. Already the six consciousness is predominant, because I have grasped the sign of the object and received it in terms of this sign of the object. But alaya consciousness, same like the five senses, they receive the object yet without differentiating inside and outside. You should experience by yourself when you purely see, without giving it a name, without holding to any particular shape. Do you distinguish between inside and outside? Try to find out. According to Yogacara, when the objects are directly experienced through the five senses, they are not grasped as outside, only later mental consciousness that we have said. Thus, the illusionary differentiation between a real subject and object, which is called Abhuta Parikalpa, Shi Wang Fenpie, is the very nature of our worldly consciousness, which cannot appear without an object. So in Buddhism, as you may know, just Buddha is especially emphasizing there is no mind without an object. And the name of the mind is according to the object, just like we say the fire based on the cow dung is a cow dung fire. Fire based on coal is a coal fire. Fire based on gas is a gas fire. So we say the mind based on the I is eye consciousness. Mind based on the mental is a mental consciousness. Same. But from the Yogacara point of view, as long as there is the grasping to the sign of the object, differentiating the sign of the object, it is already subjective mind. And this is not directly implied in the Theravada Buddhism, in the Agamas. This differentiation, however, is not real. It happens because of the transformable nature of consciousness. Our consciousness has transformable nature, and this is what is to be realized in meditation. So we will talk about it more in the next lectures. I start to explain. You should be aware of this transformable nature of the consciousness. This is meditation. Transformable nature is, however, not the real self nature of consciousness, because consciousness itself is not a dual nature. So now you want to understand the real meditation, you have to trace your experience back to the mind and see how its nature is transformable. The duality of consciousness is caused by deep-rooted habit, upachara, of grasping real existence in persons and things. Yet neither real person nor real thing can be attained in one's experience. This is the beginning of Cheng Wei Shalom, or San Shesung. Cheng Wei San Shesung. The duality is of the nature of dependent origination. The duality which is of the nature of dependent origination must be denied in order to establish the real, which is beyond all verbalization. So our dependent origination is already through the filter of our old habit of seeing real existence in things and in persons. But this real existence in things and in persons is not there. It is the transformation of our transformable mind. And this is what is to be seen in meditation. The same is explained in the Transcendental Wisdom Sutras. You have to deny the nature of your experience to come to the real nature of experience. So the first verses of the Madhyanta Vibhanga, of the Fenpie Jung Tao, of Maitreya, is Abhuta Parikalpo Asti Dvayam Tatra Navidyate. Shunyata Vidyate Tatra Tasyam Apisa Vidyate. Which means this Shi Wang Fenpie Ta Chun Zai. 因为你不能够否定我们的所有的经验的根本就是心，没有心什么都没有，所以它存在。Abhuta Parikalpo Asti Dvayam Tatra Navidyate。不过在这个虚妄分别里面没有二法，只有心，只有一个。那个八种心、七种心、六种心，只是来让我们了解，究竟心只有一个心，没有两个心。因为 眼睛所看的颜色也跟颜色是不能够分开的。意识所看的法也跟法是不能够分开的。所以心只有一个心，所以所有的分别是依照sorry, I started speaking Chinese. All our differentiations are based on the mind, how we make the object in the mind. We will talk about it. This is what is to be realized in meditation, to see the transformable nature of the mind. So the understanding of Yogacara is based on understanding of the attention, how we make the object in the mind. So we have to deny the nature of our experience based on the completely non-existent quality of self-nature in person and things, in order to find what is illusionary and what is real. Illusionary is a subjective consciousness, real is the objective nature of consciousness, which can purely observe the phenomena as they are. That's why it can contain all phenomena. It can witness the phenomena as they are, like the mirror. So, like the space, it can contain all phenomena. So this is a secret of the mind. When consciousness appears with an object, its essence, which is self-awareness, appears as if together with an active subjective aspect of manifestation, Tianfen, an objective revealed aspect revealed, we have already explained. Here the self-witness or karmic consciousness is a store consciousness. The active consciousness are the 7 other consciousnesses which always appear together with that which is revealed by a revealing function of consciousness. It can be compared to one snail, Guo Niu. The snail head has 2 tentacles. Whenever there is an object, the 2 tentacles will appear. But if there is no object to grasp, to remember, then the 2 tentacles go back to the head. There is only one mind. And this mind, its very nature is non-dual. But when it encounters an object to which it holds through the old habit of seeing real existence in persons and things, then we experience the object through the 2 tentacles, which come from the head. And the head is the self-witnessing nature of the consciousness. This is a secret of the mind. So this self-witnessing nature of the consciousness is transformable. Just like the head of the snail is transformable into the 2 tentacles. And we see the world through these 2 tentacles. So we are caught in our own spider net, because these 2 tentacles, when they appear, they are connected with all our bijas, vasanas, through which we interpret the reality. So this understanding allows a deep insight into the nature of our experience of objects in the world, understood as place, true, of consciousness. This place of consciousness is nothing but the consciousness itself. Thus, the objects of our experience are unity and duality at the same time. because this duality comes from the unity. That is the meaning. Abhuta parikalpo asti is 希望分别它存在，不过在这个希望分别没有二法。在希望分别有什么？有shunyata，有空。在空里面存在那个两见分跟相分，因为所有的真的佛教的解释，连南传佛教有这个道理。那缘起就是空，因为缘起，你了解缘起，你the dependent origination is emptiness. Only then you can transcend the affirmation and denial and go to pure observation. So this non-dual mind, it is an element existing from the time without beginning. All phenomena are supported by it. All forms of existence and nirvana can be experienced due to its existence. This is quoted in Chenwei Shilun also. It is the support of the aggregates. It appropriates them. It is the only real resultant consciousness responsible for their continuity, manifested as life faculty and heat. It is the death consciousness, rebirth consciousness, and the Jung-yo consciousness, Antarabhava consciousness. It is the consciousness which remains in the body in the state of Nirodha Samapati. The Shouxiang meeting. One of the main proofs of the alaya is the Shouxiang meeting. There has to be consciousness in order that you get back into the functioning in the world. What is the nature of the Shouxiang meeting? The subject and object, the Tianfen and Xiangfen becomes nirvana. That is Shouxiang meeting. So when you have Shouxiang meeting, you are sure to understand the real meaning of Buddhism. Beyond existence and non-existence. Nirvana is beyond existence and non-existence. And beyond words, it is coded in all Buddhist traditions. If nirvana could be described by the words, everybody would try for nirvana. But because it cannot be described, we are concerned with everything else except nirvana. So this is also the main thesis of Yogacara, the main thesis of Taoism also. That which is real is undescribable. This is also Zen. When we describe it, we are already in the dimension of the world, which we want to transcend through studying Buddhism. According to the Yogacara, the Buddhist liberation process is based on this consciousness. In the Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, which can be understood as some kind of free commentary to the Sandhi Nirmochana Sutra, I have suggested, if you don't have time, at least study the Sandhi Nirmochana Sutra, Jieshen Mijing. Especially if you don't have even time for that, study the 6th chapter. because we will always come back to that. Yogacara, Bhumi Shastra, which is the main source. I don't bring too many other sources because that would be maybe too much to absorb. But at least study the Sandhi Nirmochana Sutra in the translations or in original if you can, because Sanskrit is not available, only passages. And of course, if you can study the Iche Shatilun, so much the better, especially the Jietsu Fen and the Shenwen Kenpo Sati, if you don't have time to study anything else. And it's already much, so I don't bring too much other material, but of course, this material is endless. So, the object, understanding the transformable nature of the mind in Yogacara is through understanding the transformable nature of the mind. So in the Shravaka Bhumi, which is most important for our understanding of meditation, it is a base. In Shravaka Bhumi, you have the 4 objects which are called Vyapya Alambana, Tien Man Suo Yuan, containing all objects, which explain also the process of meditation. Now in Yogacara we have many different aspects of the process of meditation. We will speak about it, but these 4 objects, they are most important because they are all embracing and they are directly connected with all the other aspects of the explanation of the process of liberation. So now we can make a little break. Then we can go to the lecture 3 and summarize quickly the lecture 3. Then maybe there won't be much time for question and answers. You prepare your question and answers for lesson 4. Lesson 4, we will devote first to the question and answers. You have to be very clear about that, what we are now discussing, so that you can understand the lesson 4 and the other lessons which are to follow. So now let's make, because time is very limited, 15 minutes break, and then we will continue. Okay, 15 minutes break. Okay.
那个电线。
Everybody, now we can continue, and we continue with the lecture 3, which we want to finish today. And the next Sunday we will start with question and answers, and you will get during the next week you will get the lecture 4. So before I teach the lecture 4, anyone who has any questions can ask. I maybe tonight we will not have time for question and answers. But I will try to go through the text quickly. Maybe we will still find time for one or two questions. So, in lecture 3, I explained the practice of disciples from the perspective of Yogacara. I have emphasized in the Yogacara tradition, there are 3 types of Buddha, not like Lotus Sutra, which only sees the one reality, the Buddha reality. So the Yogacara emphasizes 3 vehicles, emphasizes 5 different types of Gotra, 5 different types of Jungshin. The Gotra of the disciples, the Gotra of the Pratyeka Buddhas, the Gotra of the Bodhisattvas, the non-decided Gotra Puting, and the no Gotra, the Ichantikas. So 5 types of Gotras. So you have to belong to one of the 4 Gotras in order to enter the practice. So you have the stage of Gotra belonging to the family. Now important is you have 2 kinds of Gotra. I think I have mentioned one is Gotra by birth and one is Gotra by virtue of practice. So it does not mean when you think you are practicing the path of Bodhisattva, you cannot turn to the other path and become an Arahat. When you practice the path of the Arahat, you cannot, does not mean that you become an Arahat. You can again change your Gotra, your family, according to your Abhinihara or according to your Adhyasaya. Chinese, they translate Yi-le. And Yi-le, I have explained, is the similar concept like Shui-mian, like the Anushaya, which means the in our minds they are seeds leading us to the positive potential, and there are seeds leading us to the negative. These seeds leading us to the negative, to defilements, they are called Shui-mian, Anushaya, because they sleep in the mind. And the seeds leading us to the positive, to liberation, they are called Adhyashaya, or they are called Abhinihara, which the Chinese Xuanzang translate as Yi-le. So because you have this Yi-le, you have developed consciously this Yi-le, then you can belong to the Gotra. Because you have potential for the positive. But some people, according to these traditions, they don't have much potential from the positive. So they are, so to say, without Gotra. Now, in Buddhist, other traditions, Mahayana traditions, everybody has a Buddha nature. But in this tradition, you can still belong to Ichantika. This your Buddha nature is completely hidden by your negative tendencies. And according to this Yogacara tradition, it is to wake you up, to shake you. If you think, I have no positive tendencies, then you will be shaken from inside and you will start really practicing hard, because you will be afraid you are without potential for liberation. So this is the explanation the teachers have for this concept of Ichantika. So when you think, I have no positive potential, I have only negative, then you will be shaken. Only when you are shaken, samvega, you will practice hard. So first we have to practice some seeds of good conduct, charya, and the seeds of wisdom, vipassana, in order to have this positive potential. This is explained in all traditions. Now this positive potential is also explained as paramis. So it does not mean that you are practicing the path of bodhisattva, you cannot turn to the vehicle of disciples, and when you practice vehicle of disciples, you cannot turn to the vehicle of the bodhisattvas. Depends on actually on your pensing and jungshin. This pensing jungshin is most important. You find in the Tajatalun the famous story of Shariputra. Shariputra practiced with Buddha many lives. But then, because he was practicing very hard, the Sakya, the god, came to test him. So give me your eye, you are a bodhisattva. He gave his eye. I did not want this eye, I want the other one. So Shariputra thinks, we beings, we are so irrational. I better finish with this suffering as soon as I can. So actually the real practice is the practice of renunciation, naishkramya. The real practice of Buddhism is the practice of renunciation. Renunciation means detachment. But in order to practice detachment effectively, you have to have appertance to the family, and you have to enter into the practice by practicing these adhyasayas, abhinihara. Gotra has many names such as seat. The seat is also gotra. This seat in your consciousness defines your gotra. And these seeds in your consciousness, they have accumulated from innumerable lives. So, and it's very difficult which kind of seeds we have. You may think, I am a bodhisattva, I repeat every day, Jungsem Upien Shien Tu, Fana Uchin Shien Tuan. But when this challenging comes, then you turn. Many stories like that. Now I don't want to tell stories, we don't have time. But many Shravakas, great Shravakas, turn to bodhisattvas, and the great bodhisattvas turn to the Shravakas again. Because these seeds only the Buddha can see. We only see very roughly. Only Buddha can see. Even the Shariputra cannot see in detail these positive seeds. Even a great bodhisattva cannot see, so they mistake the person's seeds. So Buddha has blamed like Shariputra for teaching the inferior doctrine to those who are capable of accepting the superior doctrines and so on. So it is the very important part of the practice to see the positive seeds in the minds of all beings. This is very important. We always tend to see the negative seeds. So we are defined by our anushayas rather by our abhiniharas. So the practice we do actually depends on our motivation. It is very important. The subtle tendency of mind can be understood as the counterpart of latent tendency of mind to defilements, anushayas. So the process of liberation is actually 3 stages. First, by practice of sila, practice of sila is a practice of the opposing. Because you practice sila, so you practice non-greed to oppose the greed. You practice the non-hate to oppose the hate. So this is the practice of the sila. It is called pij tuan, pi, tse, pi, te, pi, by opposing. Then the practice of samadhi is by suppressing. When you are in samadhi, no defilement. When you are in practice of opposing, you may still think unwholesome thoughts, but you don't follow with mouth and you don't follow with body. When you are in samadhi, you don't follow with mind also. As long as you are in samadhi, no defilements. But only when you become a Buddha, no matter whether Shravaka Buddha or the Supreme Buddha or individual Buddha, only then you can exterminate these anushayas, the sui mian. So you are not anymore, even so you still may follow your previous karma, it does not define you anymore. So you have no cause to be reborn. So 3 stages of the defilement. The most subtle defilement, which we cannot see, is the anushaya. Now we don't have any defilements, but they are still sleeping in our mind. So this is called sui mian. When they have a chance, when somebody kicks you, when somebody blames you, so still you may feel very offended, and you will defend yourself, even kick the other one. So this positive, the real practice is to make this positive tendency gross, make it very superior. And when this positive tendency for the practice of virtue becomes gross, to the extent that the path of practice cannot be abandoned, even if one temporarily becomes heedless. So for one who has directly experienced suchness, there is no way back to a state of commoner. So once you have experienced suchness in the, say, non-dualistic way, or according to the Yogacara, as long as you have not realized mind only, this dualistic tendency, subtle dualistic tendency will still be there. But you are not anymore subject to your previous karma, in the sense of making it the base for your rebirth consciousness. Your rebirth consciousness, bhavanga or alaya, however you call it, has no more clinging to the objects. But it may still have some tendencies, but not enough to activate the rebirth consciousness to bring you to the next line. And this rebirth consciousness is nothing but the alaya or bhavanga. Bhavanga literally means the cause of existence. The cause of existence is consciousness. Which consciousness? The base consciousness, which is responsible for the continuity. In Buddhism, the biggest problem is continuity. Everything appears, disappears, moment by moment. We can experience it in meditation. Then how can we remember the past? How are we defined by our past? Because it accumulates in the consciousness. Which consciousness? Alaya consciousness or Bhavanga consciousness. Bhavanga consciousness is still the sixth consciousness, but Alaya becomes the eighth consciousness. This is, we will talk about it now. Let us go to the text again. So these positive tendencies have to become very strong. When these positive tendencies become very strong, you can get the direct seeing of the suchness, the pure seeing. In the pure seeing, the middle path has been realized. Because the object of liberation, you cannot hold to it. If you hold to it, it's not the object of liberation. That's why it is a middle path. And in the object of liberation, which is emptiness, signlessness, desirelessness, the Eightfold Noble Path appears together. Otherwise, it can never appear together. So what is the commoner? Pritakjana. Pritakjana means in Pali Putu Jana. Putu means big, large. So as long as we have not realized the ultimate reality directly, we have large grasping, large disliking, large ignorance. So Putu Jana. Or Pritakjana means separate. We believe ourselves to be separate from the whole. When we believe ourselves to be separate from the whole, we are Fanfu. In the Yogacara sense, especially this sense, separateness. Because we have not realized the non-dualistic nature of the mind, we believe this object and subject really exist. In the Theravada tradition, the positive tendency of mind working counter the tendencies to defilements is discussed in terms of 6 aspects leading the practice. The renunciation, truly, isolation of the body and mind, no greed, alobha, no hate, adosa, no delusion, amoha, and desire for liberation, nissarana. You will find more or less the same principles in the Bodhisattva path. They can be summarized as seeds of merit. So the real merit is that also, in a way, the very popular, the Jinkanjin also emphasizes precisely that. The real merit is the paviveka, isolation of mind and body, and the non-delusion. Non-delusion means not see the self. They can be summarized as the seeds of merit and wisdom, without which the liberation is impossible. So in order to get liberation, we have to have the seeds of merit in our mind. Then we can enter the practice and practice effectively the renunciation. This is explained in the Shravaka Bhumi, Shenwenti. And indeed, in all Buddhist tradition, it is more or less the same. There is no difference. The Viveka isolation, which is the most important part of the practice of positive tendencies, should especially be understood as the isolation from defilements. When you try to isolate yourself from defilements, you are practicing. If you don't isolate yourself from defilements, you are not practicing. It is explained as a gradual process of cutting of defilements through 5 methods. The Tat Anga, that is practiced by Sila, by opposing. The Vikambana, that is practiced by Samadhi. The Samucheda, that is practiced by wisdom, Vipassana. The Patisamdhi, it means when you directly attain the path, then you have appeased defilements. And finally, Nissarana, when you have attained Nirvana, then you only wait till your time has come and you know there is no more cause to be reborn. So when Arahat dies, it is a real Nissarana. And the Buddha is also a Arahat, of course. In the Yogacara tradition based on Alaya, as opposed to the tradition based on the Buddha nature, there is a category of beings not capable of becoming a member of the family, striving for a genuine liberation, called Ichantikas. So we have 4 types of Gotra instead of 3 or 1, and actually 5 non-decided Gotra. Thus, no matter to which family one belongs, all yogis practicing the Buddhist path go through the 4 stages of practice. The stage of Gotra, the stage of entering the correct practice, the stage of dwelling in the correct practice. This is very important. This is a stage of dwelling in the correct practice means actually the understanding of the transformable nature of the mind in this tradition. Only like this you can go to the stage of entering the correct, to the stage of leading beyond the bondage of the world. When you understand clearly the transformable nature of the mind and transform the mind on the basis of these positive tendencies, abhiniharas, adhyashayas. The predominant condition being the correct understanding of the good law, which in Theravada traditions are the 9 sadhamas. Similar you will find in the Yogacara, in the Shravaka Bhumi. You will also find, they don't call it 8 sadhamas, but in order to practice the positive, you have to practice mindfulness, you have to practice awareness, you have to practice the energy, you have to practice the restraint of the senses, you have to practice restraint in food, you have to practice restraint in sleep. These are the good sadhamas, plus concentration, the jhanas. They are the seeds of the good conduct. And these seeds of the good conduct come together with the seeds of wisdom, which bring you to the process of these 5 kinds of cutting of defilement. They appear stage by stage. You cannot, however you explain the path, you cannot go through these stages. The sudden enlightenment is only a skillful means. It does not mean that you don't go through the stages of purification. But it only gives you a faster way by understanding that the nature of the mind is actually the real nature, is non-dualistic. So in order to get the liberation of the Shravakas, there are these conditions, same in all Buddhist traditions. The predominant condition being the hearing the Dharma from other person. That's why disciple, he has to hear the Dharma from the other person. If he does not, he cannot become a disciple. Attention based on the true state of things. Yonisho Manasikara. What is the true state of things? Impermanence, suffering of impermanence, selflessness of suffering due to impermanence, and impure nature. In a Northern tradition, emptiness and selflessness. Emptiness means not belonging to the self, therefore no self. In the Theravada tradition, one speaks of the 4 causes of becoming a stream enterer. To get a realization, in the Shravaka tradition, you go through the 4 stages of enlightenment. First stage is called entering the stream, Shrotapana. Second stage is called the coming back one time, then no coming back, and Arahant. When you become the Shrotapana, so you have directly seen the object of liberation, and it can become anytime the object of your samadhi. That is a difference between the say the noble one and the non-noble one. The noble one can directly connect to the object of liberation. Non-noble one cannot do it. This is a difference. So when you can directly connect anytime you need, like if you practice dhyana, anytime you can enter into the dhyana, then you know you have the dhyana. If you can't do it, then it is not a real dhyana. Similarly, if you have realized the object of liberation, anytime you can connect with this object of liberation, because this same like dhyana, the realization makes a deep imprint in your mind. Deep imprint in your mind, you can bring back to the mind anytime. So if you want to find out someone who has the liberation or not, you ask him, okay, go into the jhana of based on the object of liberation. If he can do it, he is a genuine one. If he can't do it, he is not the genuine one. It's as simple as that. The Shravaka Bhumi mentions 12 lower conditions, such as we won't go into that into detail. You can read it yourself. Atma Sampat, there are many different conditions of having the attainment of the self ready for liberation. Parasampat, the conditions leading to liberation. Desire for Dharma. In order to practice, you have to have a very strong desire for Dharma. According to Buddhism, all that we experience is based in desire. Sabbe Dhamma Chanda Mulika. Now, if we practice meditation, we practice Dharma, we practice virtues, then our desire is based in Dharma. If we don't practice Dharma, then our desire is only based on the satisfaction of the senses, not on Dharma. If you become worse in Dharma, then your abhinihara, your positive tendencies will predominate. So the desire for Dharma will become stronger than the desire for the satisfaction from the senses. Most of us, it's the other way around. So when it is not the other way around, it means you are in the stage of what we have described as the stage of entering the practice. To succeed in this practice, a disciple must have a thorough knowledge of the attention leading to defilements and of the attention leading to purity. So you have to know very clearly what kind of attention leads to defilement, what kind of attention leads to purity, and distinguish very clearly between the two, which is not easy. So in the Theravada tradition, we explain the process of liberation by 3 stages of complete knowledge of the objects of liberation. For the Shravaka, it is the aggregates and so on. The dependent origination, the 4 noble truths. Then their investigation of them in terms of impermanence. And then the renunciation. These are the stages. Renunciation means abandoning. Abandoning by what? By viraga, li'i, by getting detached. Getting detached is the condition for abandoning. The more we detach, the easier it is to abandon. The Yogacara Bhumi Shastra explains that the attention leading to the purity for the disciples occurs on the basis of understanding the own characteristics of what constitutes a person, understanding his conditioning, his body is characterized by the 4 elements and so on. So you get mindfulness of the gone into the body, which is base for meditation. If you don't have mindfulness based in the body, no meditation. Understanding the defects of all that is conditioned. So impermanent suffering of that which is impermanent, etc. It also explains that for the disciples, the knowledge of impermanence and suffering is based on the relative truth, while for the bodhisattva it is based on imposition of the self-existence. Very important to understand. For the Shravakas, the impermanence is real. For the bodhisattvas, nothing is real in the sense of really existing. Because the reality is beyond the word. Beyond the word is beyond permanence and impermanence. Is beyond the four definitions. Exist, non-exist, neither exist, nor non-exist, and spontaneously arising. So for the bodhisattvas, the aggregates their impermanence is only the skillful means to lead you. It is not the reality as such. If you take it as a reality, then you are imposing something on a reality which is not there. This is very important to understand. So you cannot avoid the trap of existence. Existence is a trap, same like a non-existence. And we are all caught in this trap. That's why we suffer. We either impose something on a reality which is not there, or we want desperately to take something away from it which is there. And this we do because of our deep habit, upachara, of seeing things in terms of a real existence. So as long as you believe in the real existence of the outside world, so you cannot, as far as Mahayana is concerned, Bodhisattva path is concerned, you cannot become the body of the Dharma. That means the real Buddha. Real Buddha is a suchness. Briefly speaking, the liberation of the bodhisattvas is based on understanding three levels of experience: imaginary, illusionary, but real, and pure. We have mentioned that before. The Pianchi, Thai, Parikalpita, Paratantra, Parinishpana. Everybody knows Pianchi, Itachi, Yuan Cheng, they translate Parinishpana. Briefly speaking, the liberation of the bodhisattvas is based on understanding three levels of experience: imaginary, illusionary, but real and pure. It is achieved by skillful means of contemplating three kinds of acceptance of Dharma, leading to the ultimate realization of the highest reality beyond differentiations. So, three acceptance of the Dharma means three levels of the Dharma. So the practice leading to liberation is understand that this reality based on names has no characteristics. The dependent origination based on this reality has not really arisen. Then we will understand that in the ultimate reality there is nothing to grasp. In suchness there is nothing to grasp, and this is to be realized. So the real reality, the Yogacara, starts with the emphasis that the real reality is beyond verbalization. Wu Xi Lun. Xi Lun is a very nice translation of Prapancha. Prapancha means extension of our conceptualization through desire. That is Shilun. We extend our feelings and extend our conceptualizations through desires. And it is based on the habit, deep-rooted habit of seeing the world in terms of real existence of persons and the things. So the non-arising of real characteristic in the illusionary, natural non-arising in the conditional reality defined by the illusionary, and non-arising of defilements in the pure reality. In the pure reality, there is no arising of the defilements. So what is the ultimate reality? As one sees it, who has no defilements? Who has no anushayas, the latent tendencies to defilements in the mind. This is how Sandhi Nirmochana Sutra defines the highest reality. It is the 5 aggregates as a realized person sees them. Not as we see them, but as a realized person sees them. Because he realized this reality, he is a Buddha. No matter whether disciple Buddha or Buddha for himself or the Bodhisattva Buddha, he has realized this reality. These 3 become the 3 supermundane samadhis: emptiness, formlessness, and desirelessness. These are the only doors to liberation. There is no other door. When you practice selflessness, you will enter the door of suchness through the door of emptiness. When you practice the door of impermanence, you will enter through the door of signlessness. When you practice the samadhi, you will enter through the door of desirelessness. In the practice of the disciples, the entrance into the samadhi of emptiness is through the contemplation of selflessness, into the samadhi of sightlessness, and through the contemplation of impermanence in the samadhi of desirelessness, and through the advanced practice of deep concentration. According to the Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, the disciples succeed in their practice by contemplating the established 4 noble truths. This is important. We will then have chance to talk more about it. For the disciples, the 4 noble truths are established. For the bodhisattvas, the 4 noble truths are not established because the reality cannot be established. When you establish the reality, it is not the ultimate reality. Tao, ke Tao, fei chang Tao. According to the Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, they say, okay, by the inner contemplation of suchness and by differentiating a limited number of objects. Why? Because all objects are contained for the Shravakas in 5 aggregates, in 12 spheres of perception, ayatanas chu, she'er chu, wuyin, she'er chu, sepatye. Just as far as Shravaka is concerned, it is a whole. When he understands the whole, then he can investigate the whole. All this is impermanence, suffering, and selfless. Then he can leave the whole. This is a practice of the disciples. Now the bodhisattva If he practices like that, he will become an arahat. But he does not want to become an arahat as long as he has not attained the Dharmakaya. So the Four Noble Truths remain non-established. Because the Four Noble Truths, they are the object of liberation of the Shravakas. The object of liberation of the Buddhas for themselves is the dependent origination. The object of liberation of the Bodhisattvas are the paramis. You should keep this in mind. So as long as the paramis have not fully ripened, you cannot become an arahat. So as far as a bodhisattva is concerned, you can read in the Posati, Icheshatirun, he not only studies the inner study, which is the 5 aggregates, the impermanence, and so on. He also has to study many other things. Woming. You know woming? Yiming, 还有 生命，还有那个希腊的，就是艺术，那些，像我们的朋友鲜花。As to the bodhisattvas, they contemplate both the established and non-established truths. The established truths, they are the part of the nature, Adhyatmika Vidya, naming. For bodhisattvas, the naming is not enough. He has to study other meaning in order to be able to do Jungseng. So they achieve 7 kinds of penetrative insights regarding the syllables as basis of words, concepts giving the idea of permanence, their meaning or objects, that means impermanence, the subject of grasping, Manchi, the faculties appropriated by alaya in the Yogacara sense, the object of grasping, that means the same as subject because the subject and object are mind. And the truth, both established and non-established. All bondage, gross and subtle, holding to signs of objects and grossness. Because we are holding to the signs of object, we have grossness, and because we have grossness, we have not matured the paramis. Even according to the Yogacara, even the Shravaka is not fully free from the seeds of grossness, from his habits, upachara, of seeing reality in, he does not see reality in persons, but he has still tendency to see reality in objects, because he still contemplates these aggregates, 6 bases, 18 elements as something real. Something real means something existing there, but nothing is there except the mind. The liberation from bondage, turning differentiating consciousness into wisdom, we will talk about it later, and dwelling in the nature of reality, the self-existent nature of the mind, the self-awareness. According to the Yogacara, the disciples go through the same process of realization, but their penetrative insight cannot be completed as long as they do not abandon a latent grasping to phenomena, which is impossible without understanding mind only. This is very important. So what is the function of Yogacara? Why we need to study Yogacara? To realize completely the self-existent nature of phenomena, the non-self-existent nature of phenomena, which is impossible as you believe, as long as you believe there is something outside mind. So the practice of the disciples is also viewed from this perspective. This is very important. We will study now in the coming lectures the study of the Shravakas, the liberation of the Shravakas from the perspective of the Yogacara. So this becomes very fascinating. The Mahayana Upaya Kaushalya Sutra, which you find in the Sutra Samuchaya, states that one who explained the real characteristics of phenomena, Chittamatrata, based on the text of the disciples, practices the elephant vehicle. So no matter how we practice, we have to analyze the phenomena. That is why this Yogacara is also called the Fashyang. Only when we analyze the phenomena, then we will be able to realize the true nature of the mind, which just reflects this phenomena. So you cannot separate the study of true nature of the mind from understanding of the true nature of the phenomena. You should not neglect the true nature of the phenomena. This brings us to Abhidharma. So the Yogacara is the Mahayana Abhidharma, nothing else. Study the suchness of the mind and the suchness of the phenomena. The suchness has two aspects. The worldly aspect, the suchness of the phenomena, and the ultimate aspect, the ultimate reality, which is beyond discrimination. So the best yana is, according to Lotus Sutra, called the elephant yana. You know all the story of the Lotus Sutra. Buddha taught the practice of the disciples, practice of the Buddhas for themselves, only to bring the disciples from the burning house. Then he shows them the supreme vehicle, having attracted them with the inferior vehicles. Then he teaches them the supreme vehicle, the elephant vehicle, because a Buddha is always compared as a great elephant. So now we come back to what I have mentioned in the second lecture, the four objects, Vyapya Alambana. Vyapya means Pianman. These four objects, whether we are aware of it, is everything what we experience. We cannot go beyond these four objects. Now, as long as you are not realized, everything you experience actually is in terms of these first two objects. And it is called the reflexive image with differentiation. 有分别影响. Now this reflexive image, as I translated, is very, very interesting word, especially for those who have studied the Theravada. This pratibimba actually corresponds to patibhaga. In Theravada, we always, in order to get a dhyana, suppose you practice on the breath, you need the reflexive image of the breath, then you can enter the dhyana of the anapana. But actually in this tradition, everything we experience is already the reflected image, whether we like it or not. Now, why? This is very important. I have tried to explain. In other words, as long as the ultimate is hidden from one's experience, one is just enclosed in one's own images, just like a spider in his net or a silkworm in his cocoon. This is very important to understand. Actually, in all Buddhist traditions, it is emphasized, no matter what Buddhism you study, what we are objects of our attachments are concepts, not the reality. So Buddha first has to explain the reality beyond the concept, which he calls vastu. Vastu means means a base. The real base for our perception is not the person, but the color, and so on. Only then by differentiating this color, differentiating the form, we get the idea of the person. Now, as far as five consciousnesses are concerned, they are experiencing directly the object. Alaya also has this capacity of experiencing all the objects directly. Now, when we experience the object, we already experience them through the filter of the sixth consciousness, which is discriminating consciousness. And the I consciousness cannot see the concepts. It is only the mind consciousness which can see the concepts. Very important to understand. And these concepts come from the mind. They don't come from the direct experience of reality. We will talk about it more in the coming lessons where I will explain the process of the so-called the mind process. Abhidharma, no matter whether Yogacara or Theravada, all emphasizes the importance of understanding the process of cognition. Everything appears that we experience in the process of cognition. And what is the next?
係啊，我知道，唔係我聽日打。係啊，我知道，佢都揾緊我，只不過佢揾我唔到，我又打佢。
什麼事？Okay, so we already experienced through the filter of the mental consciousness. This is very important to see. And the mental consciousness, there are two kinds of mental consciousness. Mental consciousness which follows the experience of the five senses, and the mental consciousness when we think about an abstract object like the truth, where the object comes directly from the consciousness. So either it comes after the process of the see, eye or hear, we start to think this sound is what sound, this form is a what person, or what book, or what table. This is already by mental consciousness. The visual consciousness does not see the table. It sees very clearly the color of the table. It can see the shape based on color, but it cannot see the table. Then visual consciousness comes after it has passed. Then the mental consciousness evaluates. We will talk about it later when we discuss the mental processes. And mental consciousness already brings with itself a subjectivity. Because its base is a manas. And in manas there is already the idea of the self. Manas is individualizing consciousness. So whenever we differentiate it, this individualizing tendency already will come. So it is very important in Buddhism to see very clearly the objects of our attachments, the objects of our anger is not the reality, but the concepts of reality we make in the mind. And these concepts, they are of course based on the stored consciousness, which has stored our previous experiences in terms of real objects and real persons. And this chain is endless. So in other words, as long as the ultimate is hidden from one's experience, one is just enclosed in one's own images, just like a spider in his net or a silkworm in his... The particularity of the Northern tradition is that the object of insight, image with differentiation, and the object of one-pointed attention, image without differentiation, can be combined in practice from the very beginning. But it really happens when the object of liberation is directly experienced. So no matter what Buddhism we study, the real experience of deep insight comes when the concentration and wisdom is joined together. But this really happens when the object is a middle path, Eightfold Noble Path. Why? Because the Eightfold Noble Path can only ripen on the object which you cannot grasp. If it is the object which you grasp, then you cannot cut off the defilements. You cannot cut the defilements on the object that you can grasp. That is a secret of the mind. That is a secret of suchness. The defilements can only be cut with the presence of the object you cannot grasp. So as long as we don't have in mind the object of liberation, call it suchness, call it nirvana, so we have the concept of the middle path, but we cannot have the real experience of the middle path. After a genuine realization, the object of one-pointed attention, the mind that does not move, dwells in suchness, becomes the object of ultimate appeasement, shamatha, while the mind that moves from the object to object becomes the object of ultimate insight. So finally, it is the reflexive image without differentiation, which becomes the ultimate reality when the mind does not move. But instead of image, it becomes a suchness, and suchness has no image to grasp. Very important to understand. In suchness, there is no image to grasp, but first you need some image to train on in order to understand the mind which does not grasp the image. So first train in one-pointed concentration on the image that you can grasp, then turn attention to the mind itself and realize the mind without grasping. Then you have the ripening in concentration and ripening in wisdom at the same time. This is what is meant when Dhammapada says there is no dhyana without wisdom, there is no wisdom without dhyana. One who has wisdom and dhyana, he is in the vicinity of nirvana. The wisdom and dhyana cannot be separated. So this is the essence of liberation. So the knowledge beyond differentiation, the knowledge of one truth can be penetrated. So the ignorance in Buddhism can only be abandoned when shamatha and vipassana are joined together on the base of a direct experience of the ultimate. Very important to understand. And in this tradition, the ultimate is the very nature of the mind. The ignorance, the supreme cause of bondage, and the pure, the supreme cause of freedom from suffering, can only be seen when shamatha and vipassana are joined together on the ultimate reality. So this then breaks the ignorance. And ignorance, as the scriptures say, is the supreme defilement. All the other defilements, they are just servants of the supreme defilement. Supreme defilement is the ignorance. So the Buddha teaches, having abandoned this supreme defilement, be free, you bhikshus. Be free means be pure. In this Yogacara tradition, the ultimate is but the own characteristics of the mind, or the own characteristic of the mind. The own characteristic of the mind is suchness. That's why the mind can reflect all things as they really are. The mind has, characteristic of mind is suchness because the mind has no definitive characteristic. It has transformable nature according to the nature of the object and according to the nature of the attention to decide how we experience. The nature of the object and the nature of the attention. But the nature of the attention is all prevalent in the Yogacara understanding. So the study of meditation is the most important aspect is the study of attention. Attention means making the object in the mind, zuo-yi. And because we don't make the attention in the mind according to the real nature of the object, according to the pure observation of the phenomena. So we have Tien Tao, Vipallasa. In Buddhism, the nature of ignorance is a Vipallasa, Tien Tao. We have 12 kinds of Vipallasa, Tien Tao. Which 12? We have 3 kinds of Vipallasa. Vipallasa, the Tien Tao of view, of Tien. Tien Tao of Xiang, of perception, and Tien Tao of differentiation. So 3 multiplied by 4. What 4? Seeing permanent in the impermanent, seeing happiness where there is suffering of impermanence, seeing self where there is no self to be found, and seeing purity where there is no purity to be found, no constant purity to be found. So altogether 12. This is the content of ignorance. Now when you get rid of ignorance, then what is taught in the Tapanye Panching, you see the permanent, you see the happiness, you see the self. This is the teaching of the Mahayana. But in Theravada you will not directly find these teachings, but they make sense, no doubt. But first you have to see the impermanence to see the permanence. First you have to see the suffering to see the happiness. First you have to see the non-self to see the self. But actually the Buddha has neither taught the self nor taught the non-self. That which is true as far as Yogacara concerned is beyond verbalization, beyond self, beyond non-self, beyond impermanence, beyond permanence, beyond purity, beyond impurity, beyond existence, beyond non-existence. So the Yogacara is based on, not based on ontology, on study of existence, but is based on soteriology, on study of liberation. And it is very useful for liberation, but it may not be necessarily very useful for worldly purpose, because it starts with the ultimate reality, with suchness nature of the mind. And when you want to see the suchness nature of the mind, then you may not find too much attraction in what you find so attractive. Okay, so now it's already 8 o'clock. So let's give a chance to 1 or 2 questions, so that, and we will continue with questions and answers in the next lessons. And in the next lessons, we will continue then to explain the process of liberation based on the objects of meditation, as explained in the Shravaka Bhumi. In Shravaka Bhumi, the process of meditating is explained on the base of 16 objects. So I will teach you in the next lessons these 16 objects, and how the process of liberation of Shravaka is explained on the base of acquaintance with these 16 objects. Okay? Then slowly, slowly we will go into the process of liberation of Bodhisattva, and eventually, when we have time, we will compare with some principles of Theravada, how it comes together. Okay? So that we get some deep insight into Buddhism finally being the one. It all has the same basis, and it becomes very clear, especially when we study Yogacara. Yogacara is deeply rooted precisely in the Agamas. So when you study Icheshutirun, you will find it very clearly, but it interprets the meaning of explaining the Agamas on the base of Vaisha. So this is very interesting. So we will see that in the coming lessons. Okay. So anyone has some important question, or shall we finish here? You better think about these questions so that they may be of great use for others also. But if some urgent question is, or if some misunderstanding about what I have explained now on the base of this summary of number 2 and number 3 lecture, so please do so. Anything not clear from what I have taught now? Is it clear? I tried my best to explain it as clearly as I can. I hope I have succeeded to some extent. So you have the base, and on this base we can build. Okay? Anyone has some very urgent question as to the content of my today's exposition? Everybody satisfied, so we will transfer merit for the benefit of all sentient beings, and then finish for today. Please think of some good questions for the next Sunday. And I will supply the Jiangyi during the next week. When I have time, I will write it down. 愿此功德普济一切，我等一众生皆空成佛道。Now some Pali. Eta vata chame hi sampadam punya sampadam Sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Eta vata chame hi sampatam punya sampadam. Sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Eta vata chame hi sampatam punya sampadam. Sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Aka satta chabumata deva naga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chiramarakantu loka sasana. Aka satta chabumata deva naga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chiramarakantu desana. Aka satta chabumata deva naga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chiramarakantu tumampana. Devo vasatu kalena sasa sampati hotu cha. Pito bhavatu lokocha. Raja bhavatu dhammiko. Okay, thank you for your attention.